Hello, Janesville, and welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. I'm your host, Nick Faust, and I'm the Communications Specialist in the City Manager's Office. Now, on last month's episode, we sat down with Parks Director Cullen Slapak. Given our namesake and Janesville's tremendous pride in our park system, it was great to hear from Director Slapak about the work he and his team are doing to provide that wonderful resource to our community. If you're interested in viewing that episode or any past episode of Park Place Views, they're all available to watch on demand on the city's website or JATV's YouTube channel. Today we're happy to be joined by Jane Golberg, Director of Janesville Mobilizing for Change, or JM4C for short. JM4C is a state-certified prevention agency focused on reducing substance use and promoting mental wellness in Janesville. A community coalition with nonprofit status, JM4C has operated as a division of the city since 2012 under the oversight of the director of the Hedberg Public Library. But before we get too far into the coalition's important work, here's a little more about Director Golberg. Jane became the director of JM4C in March of 2021. Prior to that, she served as the agency's Drug-Free Communities Project Coordinator for over 6 years. Director Golberg's other professional experience includes work with the School District of Milton and 7 years as a health educator. Jane holds a Bachelor of Science in Community Health Education from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse and a Master of Public Health degree from Des Moines University. She's a state-certified prevention specialist and a certified health education specialist. Thanks for joining us today, Jane.
Thanks for having me.
Well, before we get started, I thought maybe this would be a good chance to tell the community a little more about yourself, anything I didn't cover.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Minnesota, but Janesville definitely has a special place in my heart. My grandparents lived here, so I have childhood memories of coming to visit them and playing down at Palmer Park and going to eat at the Hoffman House. They both worked at the GM plant here in Janesville, and they were very proud of that. They were very proud of Janesville, and they would just be tickled to know that I am now living here raising kids of my own.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. I think that it's great to see folks return to a place of fond memories, and if that's Janesville, that's all the better for us. But I gave a brief overview, Jane, I think at the beginning here, of JM4C, kind of the coalition's brief history. But I thought it might be a little more helpful if you could take the time to maybe explain the origin story of the coalition.
Sure. So JM4C actually has history that dates back to the late 90s. It started as a committee within the Janesville School District to address substance use among students. A little while later, that committee kind of moved out into the community to build more partnerships to address substance use among youth. And then Partners in Prevention was born. So that was an organization that was similar to JM4C. They did have drug-free communities funding, but they addressed prevention at the county level. When that funding ended, coalitions in other communities in Rock County started popping up, so Evansville, Edgerton, Beloit, Janesville, and at that time we applied for the Drug-Free Communities grant to address prevention at the Janesville level. So Rock County is really unique in that it has all of these community coalitions working together on prevention, but then also working in their own communities on prevention. Prevention work in Janesville looks different than prevention work in a smaller community like Evansville.
Right. Kind of that approach allows you to kind of tailor the mission and JM4C's efforts into something that's not one size fits all, but specific to our folks in the community. And so JM4C kind of organized under its current moniker in 2011 and 12, and we talk about the agency becoming really a community coalition striving towards a safer, healthier community. What do those communal efforts look like, and as I understand it, does it involve a diverse board of directors?
Yes, absolutely. So we get a lot of support in the community, and as part of our grant requirement, we must have 12 sectors of the community represented. So some of those sectors would include law enforcement, school district, healthcare, religious organizations. So those are just a few, but we have a diverse background, and the purpose is to really bring a lot of community expertise to work towards that same goal.
Yeah, and with the coalition's kind of present arrangement with the city, where I understand the City of Janesville serves as the fiscal agent for JM4C, what does that relationship sort of look like?
So that means that all of our grant funds are funneled through the city. So when we get grant funds that come in, they go to the city, and then therefore any expenses that we have under our grants, including payroll, are done through the city. I work closely with Brian McCormick, who is the Hedberg Library Director, but he also serves as our business official. So we work together monthly to go over monthly reports to make sure we know how much money is coming out of each of the grants that we have. And therefore, we also are considered a department under the Hedberg Public Library. So we are City of Janesville employees, our office is out of the library, and we just really are grateful for all the support that we have through the library and the city. If it wasn't for Brian and his team, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Well, and Jane, it's wonderful to hear about that collaboration, with the HPL and with the city, because I know that really allows you folks to amplify your work and reach more residents in our community. And I think the final piece of magnifying the agency's mission came in 2016 when JM4C was incorporated as a nonprofit. What does that status really allow the agency to do?
So the reason we did that was kind of to ensure sustainability. We know that some grants expire, so we just wanted to have that as a backup. And with that status, we are able to accept donations, do some fundraising activities, and also apply for some private grants.
Yeah, really an important step in ensuring the continuity of your work and extending the agency into the future and looking back towards that work to create a safer, healthier Janesville. I know JM4C is proactive in preventing and reducing substance use amongst our community's youth. I'll call what you folks kind of orient that mission on as the 3 A's: advocacy, awareness, and action. Could you speak more to the agency's efforts in those areas?
Yep, absolutely. So as an organization, we are definitely advocates for prevention. We do a lot of awareness raising activities in the community. We want to get information out to the public. And then we also follow our action plan. And there is a science behind what we do. We do a needs assessment to see where the needs are in the community regarding substance use, and then we are able to develop and implement strategies and activities based on those needs to address those.
Yeah, and that's a really important piece to highlight, Jane, because I think sometimes people don't realize the technical and the evaluative work that really goes into reaching the right folks, doing the right programming, and keeping that moving forward. And Jane, then if we talk about actions that the agency is taking on a community level, JM4C has an environmental strategy that helps guide efforts. And we think about creating a healthier Janesville. Those strategies are imperative to accomplishing community-wide goals rather than, it's great to touch the individual, but achieving success on a community level is so important. When we discuss kind of modifying policies, changing physical design, enhancing access, what do those things really mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we utilize a lot of different strategies to affect community change because we know that there's not one magic bullet that is going to make a problem go away. So those strategies that you just mentioned are more environmental strategies. So they're going to affect a broader range of people. So physical design, an example of that would be having signage in our parks and city buildings about no smoking, no vaping. Enhancing access, that would be our medication take-back events that we do. So we go out to meet the community where they're at grocery stores, at shopping centers, libraries, to make sure that they dispose of their unneeded medication. And that's just taking a step out for them so they don't have to go and find a drug drop box nearest them. And then modifying, changing policies, that's a tougher one to work on. That can take a couple of years. But an example of that would be when the City Council passed the no vaping ordinance several years ago. JM4C was a big advocate of that ordinance.
Yeah. So using all of those environmental strategies in each different area to kind of get to that community-wide goal. It's great to hear that the agency is proactive in that category as well. And I wanted to maybe highlight a few of the physical resources that JM4C offers the community. Home medication drop boxes, fridge locks, which I understand you've brought some to the studio today. How does getting those items out and into our community's homes really work towards that effort?
Sure. So when we think about reducing prescription drug misuse, we have these lock boxes that we are able to provide free of charge to anyone who would benefit from the use of them. And this just makes sure that people who have medications at home, whether or not you have teens or young children in the home, this is good to have because sometimes people come into your home to do repairs. And this is just one of those security measures to make sure that meds are locked up. It's not foolproof, of course, but it does act as a deterrent. And then we also have these alcohol bottle locks that can be placed right on top of bottles of liquor or wine. And again, it's not foolproof, but it's definitely going to take that extra step away. And then also Wisconsin, having fridges and garages are a big deal. So these are fridge locks. So it's just kind of an extra security measure as well.
Yeah, and as you talk about, it's not one size fits all, but it's collectively those deterrents come together to actually tangibly reduce the risk of substance abuse. And so it's wonderful to see that those resources are available and that they're free for folks. They can stop by, they can give your agency a ring.
They are available at the HPL Express branch, the lock boxes, and then we also have them at the main library as well. So people can just come during business hours and pick those up.
Easy as that. That's awesome. And those devices, I think, kind of dovetail into a broader range of resources. I know the agency has available for parents information that will help them prevent and reduce substance use by their children. Where can parents go to get that kind of critical information on those topics?
Sure. So knowledge is power. So we definitely want to make sure that people have access to that credible information that we keep on our website, which is jm4c.org. We have information for parents, we have information for youth, and then just kind of the various drug trends that we see happening in Janesville. We also post to our Facebook page on social media, and then we do a monthly newsletter to make sure that people are getting little snippets of information and then checking to see what JM4C is up to in the community. Another resource we have is we do a hidden in plain sight display, and this is something that we do for schools, organizations, anyone who is interested in viewing it. We can set up a presentation, and what that is we have a teenager's bedroom that we scatter with drug paraphernalia. So this is just an awareness thing for parents to see what is out there, what do drug trends look like these days, because they are always changing. And even when we started this project, I think in 2016, we've already added to our display because things like vapes came out after that. So we are constantly evolving as well.
And as that evolves, as you said, knowledge is power. And so for parents who want to learn more and keep up with those constant evolutions in those risk behaviors, resources like that are so critical in knowing what's going on in your own home.
Right.
And I think that given all that valuable information, would you maybe have advice or tips for parents, viewers at home, who are looking to kind of broach that what can sometimes be awkward conversation with their use about drug and alcohol use? Yeah,
so my advice would be to start small and have those frequent conversations with kids about what alcohol looks like, use looks like, their expectations for kids. This has been proven effective, that so much so that the Wisconsin Department of Health Services created a statewide campaign called Small Talks. So they have great information on their website, which is smalltalkswi.org, and it's for parents to kind of get talking tips by age group. So a conversation with an 8-year-old might look different than a conversation with a 12-year-old.
Right.
So it's just having those regular conversations are so important. And I know when I was in school, it was usually that one big conversation
Right.
before like prom or something. But starting early, as young as 8, is really important.
Yeah, it's not the stereotypical big sit-down moment. The effective strategies are those incremental, smaller conversations that, as I understand, you can have with your child at every stage of their development.
Absolutely.
And keep that pathway open, moving ahead in their lives. And JM4C also, I think, towards the alcohol side of things, has a role in what are known as compliance checks, or things that ensure that area businesses here in Janesville and our communities that surround us purveying alcohol are doing so legally and not providing our youth with those substances. I understand that recently there was maybe quite a big community success as it comes to those compliance checks.
Yes, absolutely. So JM4C has been coordinating alcohol compliance checks for pretty much the life of our DFC grant, and we work closely with the Janesville Police Department to conduct these checks. And the record in Janesville has kind of ebbed and flowed over the years, but our last check, which was a couple of months ago, was a success. All of the businesses we checked were 100% compliant.
Awesome.
So that was wonderful news. Janesville has not seen that record in quite some time. So great news for Janesville, and good job to our retailers.
Yes, certainly want to thank those retailers for being responsible purveyors of alcohol, and as always, that collaboration with the JPD, allowing you folks to make sure those folks are operating responsibly is so critical. And being that it is also May, it means we're 1 month away now from LGBTQ plus History Month, also known as Pride. And I think JM4C should be incredibly proud of the resources I know it offers to Janesville's LGBTQ plus youth. Why is that resource availability so critical as we strive for a healthy community?
Yes. So from our data in our Youth Risk Behavior Survey, we found that students who identify as LGBTQ plus are more at risk for substance use than those who don't identify as LGBTQ plus. So we received some grant funding a few years ago to address alcohol use among the LGBTQ population. So what that looked like in Janesville is we organized some trainings for school district staff, law enforcement, on how to be more inclusive, how to be more welcoming, having supports for students and their families who identify as LGBTQ plus. We do not have that funding anymore or a coordinator dedicated to working on that, but that is something we very much still support, and we provide resources on our website. And then any way we can be a resource, we absolutely will, because we want to be inclusive and a safe space for all youth.
Yeah, so important as we consider community outcomes and where our youth need support the most. And so that is great to hear. And to do all that tremendous work that we've been discussing so far, it takes a strong coalition, which JM4C certainly has, but it also takes funding, which you've alluded to, different grant sources. Could you maybe provide an overview of those revenues and the DFC grant?
Sure, absolutely. Yes. So JM4C is completely grant funded. So our main funding grant, or our largest grant, is our Drug-Free Communities grant. So that is 10 years of funding, and we are in year 10 of 10. We also have a sexual violence prevention grant through the state of Wisconsin. And then we do a contract with Rock County Human Services to do some prevention activities in Janesville and throughout the county. And then we have some other little local incentives or grants through our Alliance for Wisconsin Youth, and then also the state opioid response grant.
Yeah, and I wanted to maybe highlight that more, because when we think about, JM4C's efforts, I think it's important to note that you folks in your agency are grant funded, truly. And
Yes.
So your success comes from your ability to secure those grants. It's certainly not like the city or any other organization is bankrolling that. That is your staff putting in the work. And so I think that's that's important to really highlight. And as a part of that grant process, I understand in the nonprofit world and in the prevention world, tracking is extremely important. And one primary strategy the agency, it sounds like, is using to gauge outcomes is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. What is that process like?
Sure. So the Youth Risk Behavior Survey is implemented in schools, middle schools and high schools, and it's asked every 2 years for students, and they just kind of give what their health behaviors are. And those health behaviors include substance use. So for our grant reporting purposes, we look at what are the youth drinking rates past 30-day use, what are perceptions about alcohol, or what parents' or friends' perceptions about alcohol. So we can kind of use that to see how we're doing, but then also how to focus our efforts in the future as well.
Yeah. A powerful data that really helps kind of over time too, analyze where those trends are or where work needs to be done. And you spoke then too that JM4C is in the last year of that Drug-Free Communities program funding. What will that change kind of look like for the coalition, and what happens after that grant expires?
So we are definitely working on sustainability efforts. So what programs or strategies are we doing now that our partner organizations can take over? I mean, absolutely, JPD can continue the alcohol age compliance checks, and the schools can take on our reality mazes. But we will definitely continue to search for different funding opportunities that align with our mission and goals.
Yeah, keep moving forward, and that's good to know that work is being done now, and you're working with your partner organizations to do that. And if folks at home on that note then are interested in supporting JM4C's critical work, whether that be financially or through their volunteer efforts and their time, where can they go to get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are always willing to accept new members of the community to help out and accept donations. So the best way to find us is our website at jm4c.org or calling our office at 741-2105.
Well, and then Jane, speaking of things to certainly get involved in, I'd like to maybe take the chance to highlight a few of the popular programs, one being, especially in the warmer months, JM4C's Prevention in the Parks. What does the agency have in store for that program this summer?
Yeah, so we are very excited about this summer's Prevention in the Park activities. We plan to hold them on the last Tuesday of every month at 4th Ward Park. And 4th Ward Park is going through some upgrades.
Yes.
So we are excited to share that with the community later this summer. But we have some things up our sleeve like cookouts, Christmas in July, some music. So you got to stay tuned to our Facebook page. We have a page dedicated to JM4C Prevention in the Park where we share all the details.
Yeah, encourage everybody, if you're on Facebook, not only give JM4C a follow, but tune into that event page for Prevention in the Park, because as you mentioned, it's an exciting summer for that program, an exciting summer for the 4th Ward Park, and it'll be great to get out there in the sunny days ahead. And I also wanted to maybe highlight before we go the Reality Maze program, which you touched on briefly. I wanted to focus on that because that's a great partnership with our local schools. So what does that entail for students who are taking the Reality Maze?
Yeah, so the Reality Maze is done at the middle schools, and it's for 8th grade students. And what it looks like is they all come into the gymnasium, and they receive a scenario card. And that scenario puts them in a risky behavior type situation, whether it's underage drinking, prescription drug misuse, vaping, sexting. They go through this scenario. And then we rely heavily on our community partners. So we have law enforcement, the JPD is there, Rock County Sheriff's Office. We have nurses from Mercy Health. We have Rock County Human Services. We have the fire department. So we are so grateful to our volunteers because they will explain to these students what the consequences would be if that was a real life situation. So it just goes to show how one poor decision can really affect your life.
Connecting those decisions that teens in our community are faced with the consequences of that behavior, and that's important to illustrate that at that age. And I think then for maybe some folks who want to learn more about JM4C and want to help participate in the agency's mission, I wanted to highlight the fact that JM4C actually has a podcast that I think is available. Could you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. So yeah, we dusted off the mics last fall, and what we are doing right now is we are going through a sector spotlight series. So we are highlighting each of our community partners from the different sectors, and we're kind of sharing how we work together. So you can find that podcast on our website or wherever you get your podcasts. It's called Together for Change.
Together for Change. Yeah, certainly encourage our viewers to give that a listen and really get some more insight into your work. And as always, it's been so great to hear about the work JM4C is doing, Jane, and the real impacts it's having on creating a healthier and safer environment for youth and a safer Janesville in general. If folks at home would like to get in touch with you or the agency, where can they go?
Our website, jm4c.org. They can email me, and also by calling us, 741-2105.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Jane. Thanks again for stopping by, and a bigger thank you for the coalition's efforts. It's so vital that we do, as a city, have a proactive team working together to prevent substance abuse and create a healthier environment. So thank you. And I want to thank you, our viewers and residents, for tuning in today and for all you do to help make Janesville a community of choice to realize life's opportunities. Now, Park Place Inquires is an opportunity for community members like yourself to submit questions for city staff to answer right here on this program. This month's question comes from Haley F., who asked for more information about the new Friday community program in Town Square. Debuting this month, First Fridays on Festival is a new lunchtime concert series in the Town Square at Festival Street. Co-sponsored by the city's Recreation Division and Downtown Janesville, Inc., on the first Friday of every month from May to August, local musicians will perform live concerts at the J.P. Cullen Pavilion from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. While at the show, attendees may also enjoy food trucks on Festival Street and giant lawn games on the Great Lawn. The next First Fridays concert will take place on June 3rd, so grab a blanket, a picnic table, and we look forward to seeing you down on Festival Street. Now, if you're like Haley and have an inquiry you would like featured right here on this program, please submit it to us by emailing cojmedia@ci.janesville.wi.us. And while your question may not be answered right here on the program, city staff will be happy to answer for you. I also invite you to stay connected with the city by following us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, signing up for emergency notifications from the JPD via the Nixle app, and registering to receive our weekly city press releases by visiting www.janesvillewi.gov/email lists. I also want to encourage you to tune into the program next month when I sit down with Chief of Police David Moore. After another year that saw our community's crime rate decrease once again, and a big summer of outreach for the JPD ahead, I look forward to sitting down with Chief Moore to learn more about their efforts. For Park Place Views in the City of Janesville, I'm Nick Faust. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.